my first guy for important younger players going into this playoffs. I'm kind of torn between two Rockets players, but I think I'm going to go with a guy I don't think we've talked a ton about on here, which is Amin Thompson. I think that he has like a legit case for like Defensive Player of the Year this year. He's taken a leap forward ever since he entered the starting lineup and has played like a pseudo point guard role. Like he's played kind of everywhere, just wherever they kind of needed him. So he's someone that I definitely want to see how his game translate to playoff basketball, because the Rockets in general, they're a get out and run and transition team, force turnovers, really guard and get into people. That's kind of their bread and butter. And in the playoffs, the game slows down. Like, I'm interested to see a lot of what their half-court offense looks like, who they'll go to at the end of games. And I think Amin might be some of the answer for that, but it makes it hard because he still hasn't really found the consistency with his shot. So he's somebody that I'm interested to see how his playoffs is going to go. And I can kind of see two outcomes. One where he just isn't quite ready to contribute on that level offensively. And I think if that's the case, the Rockets won't have that long of a playoff stint. Like, they'll probably be going home in the first or second round. But if he can kind of channel what he did at points throughout the season as like showing some promises, like a really different level athlete at like the lead guard spot who can create his own offense despite the shooting concerns, I think you could also see like the birth of a real star in the league. Mm-hmm. So he's one of the players that I'm definitely going to be keeping a close eye on this playoffs.
Yeah. I remember, I don't think you were with us yet, Cameron, but I remember during a men's draft cycle and just kind of talking about the discourse around him and his brother was whether or not the jumper would come along. And I think it's still a work in progress for both, for sure. But I think even without that, because I'm going to be honest, I think I kind of underestimated how athletically gifted both of them are. And I think part of that is just because they played in OTE, and so you don't really know how to gauge that. But I think they have the tools and the skills, or at least the men. I think he has the tools and the skill set to still be a really effective player in the playoffs. And I think what's so interesting about the Rockets is, take the Thunder, for instance, last year. Like, obviously now I think that they're contenders, but I think you look at them, they're a younger team. They kind of had their clear-cut star player. For a team like the Rockets, they rely mostly on defense, and I feel like that's not something you typically see from younger teams. It's like they kind of have their clear-cut star, and they kind of have some pieces to surround them. But for the Rockets, it's like I feel like Ime Udoka has just instilled the right kind of mentalities into them, and they play kind of like a championship team, but they don't have the championship makeup, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they kind of feel like they have like the perfect championship supporting cast, but they just don't have the leading actor like casted yet. Like, they don't have the headline on the marquee guy yet. Like, it feels like that guy isn't on the roster yet, possibly, but it also feels like, in the same note, like at any moment, one of those guys could kind of take that role.
Yeah. And that's why I'm interested to see whether, because a lot of people I know are very high on Amin. I'm kind of waiting to see how this playoff series goes to see, like, okay, is there a serious reality where it's like, okay, he can take that superstar leap? Or even, I'm kind of interested to see, like, is it Jalen Green?
Yeah, that was the other player I was thinking about, was just like, because I think for the Rockets as a whole, like, you can say this about Şengün, Green, Thompson. Like, this is going to be a really big, like, data point for the Rockets, as, like, you have guys, a couple guys coming up on contracts, and just, like, eventually you're going to have to decide which direction to go in as a team. I don't really see this team as presently constructed staying together, at least like this. So I think this would be a good test for the Rockets organization and front office to see how their young players react under the lights.
Yeah, and you mentioned Amin Thompson's defense and how he has had a potentially all-defensive type of season. In a matchup like this with the Warriors, this is a 2-7, but they're only separated by 4 wins, which is kind of crazy because you look at the East, you have Celtics, Magic. That's a 20-win differential. for the 2 and the 7 seed, completely different in the West. So these are two teams that, it might be an upset, but they're pretty neck and neck. So who are you hoping that Amen Thompson is really got circled on the scouting report? Are you looking at an Amen Thompson, Jimmy Butler matchup defensively? Or are you looking at him chasing around with Steph Curry? What kind of defensive strategy would you use against this specific matchup if you're able to bring in Amen Thompson to the table?
I think at different points in the series, like Email kind of put him on different people. Like all year, he's kind of been versatile and like guarded different positions. But if you look a lot at their last game, his primary matchup was Curry, and he gave Curry probably one of the worst performances like I've ever seen Steph Curry. Yeah, it was really rough. So I think until like that doesn't work, like until like Curry takes it personally and has like a huge game or something like that, I think Amen will probably be the matchup there. And even if something like that were to happen, he's probably their best perimeter defender. So I would say Curry's the most important guy. It'll be interesting on defense to see if he holds up against like Curry going at a different type of intensity. Like playing in a regular season is one thing. You might catch a guy on a bad night. He might not be fully invested in the game. But in the playoffs, every game is really, really intense. So it'll just be interesting to see if he'll be able to bring his level of intensity and his play up to playoff performance level.
I'm also interested to see kind of just the game-by-game progression, because I feel like I could see this being a series where there's just a lot of adjustments. And I know you talked about how Amen's capable of guarding different people. I think Sengun is still probably going to carry most of the offensive workload, but I'm kind of interested to see how the hierarchy after that kind of looks, based on, Amen's workload defensively, because I do think he has the athleticism to maybe be one of the top leading scorers for the Rockets this series. But like you just talked about, I think when you're having to chase around Curry on screens a lot, and don't forget, they also have Tari Eason too. And I think Amen's probably the better matchup, but for a good portion of the season, they're being called the Terror Twins for a reason. And I think even outside of Eason, Jabari Smith, he's not a great defender, but he's still kind of a more...
He's rangy, long. He can bother people a little bit.
Yeah. So I think they're not maybe the screen navigators that Amen Thompson is, but they do have some options, and I guess in terms of bodies that you can try and hook to not even just Curry, but Jimmy Butler as well.
Yeah, like I could even see a world where maybe they put him on Draymond at certain points, just knowing that he kind of runs their offense in a sense. So like you could possibly see them put him on Draymond, so when Curry comes off a DHO or off a screen, that the switch defender is somebody who like is more than capable of guarding them. So that could be a way that the Rockets use to disrupt the Warriors' offense, because their whole offense is kind of predicated off Draymond getting them into things. So it's definitely interesting to see how they'll use him in that series, but he's definitely one of my players that I have circled. And then my next guy is, we're going to go to Detroit, but not who you may think I'm going to go with.
Is it Ron Holland?
Nope. Not Ron Holland. Even though I think he might hit the over in like 2.5 scuffles in the first round. But I'm going to go with Jalen Duren.
Okay.
I think, especially with this being like a contract year, this is going to be a really big series, or whether or not like that determines his future with the team. And it's a hard matchup. Like, he's going to have to guard Karl-Anthony Towns for large stretches of the series, and he's going to have to show that not only can he protect at the rim, but he can also get out the closeouts, navigate screens. And I think this is like a perfect series to see like what he's really capable of on that end. Like, there's been like mixed bags. Like, some people are higher on his defense than others. Some people think he's actually a really bad defender. So I think this series will really expose whether or not he'll be able to hold up or not. Because Cat, while he hasn't historically been the greatest playoff performer, last year he did a hell of a job in the playoffs. And this year they're gonna have the advantage in the series, just with they're gonna be favored. So I'm just interested to see how he'll hold up on that end of the floor and also whether he'll be able to give them anything offensively.
Yeah, because you mentioned the perimeter play from Cat. I imagine they're gonna involve some kind of action with whoever's ball handling it. If it's Brunson, bringing Cat up there, going for some kind of screen, and being able to figure out where and communicate what you're gonna do if Brunson tries to just drive right off the screen, or if he kind of hesitates, maybe puts it back out to Cat. Like, is Jalen Duren the type of guy that I know he's a little bit undersized as a 5 compared to Cat, like true 7-footer that can shoot as well? Do you think that almost gives him a favorable advantage that he might be able to move his feet kind of quicker on the perimeter for a guy like Cat, or is that something he might be worried about going into the series?
To be quite honest, I'm a little worried. I haven't seen a lot of him being that fluid of a mover, but we'll see. Like, I just think that's the great thing about the playoffs is a lot of questions that you have about teams that maybe you don't get to see as much on a regular basis, like they get answered in the playoffs when you get to see them in the most high leverage moments against some of the best players in the league. It's not, you don't have like the games against weak teams that didn't get to scout or something like that. Like, there's no trap games in the playoffs. Like, there's not going to be a game in a playoff series where the other team is coming in late at night on the second night of a back-to-back and didn't even really get a scout and a player can go off. Like, whatever you can do in the playoffs is like a real microcosm of what you're actually capable of. So I'm interested to see how he performs under lights.
I think what's so interesting about the Rockets and Pistons is part of the reason why they've been able to make these bigger, I guess, regular season leaps is because of the veterans that they've gone out and signed. And the Rockets, it took a little bit longer, but they signed Van Vliet,
Dylan Brooks.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about both of these teams, but particularly the Pistons, is that they've kind of relied on younger bigs for the most part. And especially with Jalen Duren, I'm kind of interested to see how that kind of affects his play. Just because I think with bigs, sure, they're maybe a little bit easier to project and put into the league, but I still think a lot of times they kind of need that guidance just because when you're a big, there's still a lot of processing and you do have to understand like what's going on. And especially, I don't know if this is maybe the case for Duren, but like, especially if you're a playmaking big, but for Duren, I think it's going to be a tough series just because the Knicks, obviously, I don't think they're going to get out of the Eastern Conference, but I still think they have so many skilled, experienced players who are just versatile and can cause problems in a lot of different ways. And I think that can be overwhelming for a big, honestly.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how he like controls their back line and stuff. Like, the Knicks aren't necessarily like they're not the Warriors or anything on offense, but they do have a lot of guys. They do run some like good stuff. They're just gonna challenge the Pistons in certain ways that I'm interested to see as a team how they hold up. And I think Duren is gonna play a really big part in whether or not this series is a 5 or 6 game like feel good series, like the Pistons gave them a fight, or if it's a series where you could see the Pistons potentially winning it. Like, I think how good he plays is the biggest driving factor of whether or not they'll win the series.